Methadone clinics are there to make the owners a lot of money. If you look at the behavior of the methadone clinics that are in this area, what they do, instead of reducing your methadone dose over time, trying to help you clean up your act, get onto a minimum or even no methadone, we now understand that it's probably impossible to get you off, they will raise your dose. We have patients that are on 160 milligrams of methadone. The methadone clinic official contention is because there's some obscure FDA reading someplace that methadone is not intoxicating. They advertise that it is not intoxicating. But I've been the expert medical witness on at least 3 cases now of an intoxicated person driving a motor vehicle that either caused the death of the operator or an innocent or severe injury. So it is definitely intoxicating. It makes you sleepy. It lengthens your reaction times. It is not a safe drug, unlike Suboxone that doesn't do any of those things. Let's talk about what's the earliest adage that you learn as a kid. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So if we can figure out how to prevent ongoing addiction as a development, then why would we not emphasize that? And the answer is, I don't know why not. We should be doing this. This should be an entry at kindergarten. Everybody in the population gets tested, just like they want to know, did you have your, your vaccines for whooping cough. We should know who is who. If we do, we'll find that there's a large subgroup of the population. So it's not that you're singling out some few people who are genetically not the same as the rest of us. They are the rest of us. Okay? Many of us have this defect. We tend to be better at making babies than normal people that don't have this defect. So there are more of us. We hang out together. We could prevent a lot of the downstream developments of addiction if we knew who was at high risk and began early, as I did with my daughter, and educated the heck out of them. And everybody else. I mean, anybody that wants to listen, that's important. But some people are at much higher risk, and we can demonstrate that. So genetic testing early, yeah, cheek swab, it's simple, it's not harmful. It costs about $50 retail. If the state was doing it on a wholesale basis, it would be peanuts. The instant somebody starts buying drugs and gets into trouble, the state's expenses skyrocket. It's extraordinarily expensive. You got the whole criminal justice system, you got all these diversionary systems. None of this is free. It's tons and tons of money. So if we could know in advance who's at risk and try to divert them out of that risk pool into a much lower risk pool, that would be money well spent in a society that's acting proactively rather than reactively. Reaction is expensive. Proaction is not free, but it's a lot less expensive. Sure. Let's start with the fact that we make our own opioids. They're called endorphins. When you go out and do a lot of exercise, you get that exercise high. What that is that you've done a lot of exercise, you've injured yourself slightly, you've released these endorphins, which are pain medicines, same as regular opioids, and they have a set of built-in receptors at a finite number in your brain. So exercise, release endorphins, get high. Everybody does that, feels good, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a positive addiction, it's positive behavior. To that system of fixed number of relatively low-grade receptors, now you add a high-grade opioid, much more potent than an endorphin. And that's the original high that addicts will talk about, and they'll rave about it till the end of their lives. Oh man, I was so high, it was so wonderful. They are thereafter chasing that high. But the physiology of what happens is that you have overwhelmed a finite number of not very powerful receptors, and you have created a whole pack of new ones that are, it's like creating an army of, baby crows. They're all looking for a worm. So, and you never undo that. So you've got a big demand created, and you can't ever satiate it as you did the first time around. So you're never going to get that high again, no matter how much drug you take, even if you take enough to kill you. Addicts don't get that. They keep, quotes, chasing the high. And that's how many of them wake up dead. And it's why I'm hearing these stories, as I mentioned, of the kid who's using naloxone followed by fentanyl, a small amount of naloxone and an indeterminate amount of fentanyl. The problem with all this is that these drugs are being sold, either cut or uncut, by people that you don't know, and who have not your interests in mind, but their interests. They may have a habit of their own, and you're simply a vehicle so they can buy their own drugs. They don't care about you. They're going to tell you any story that they wish. So you have an unstable situation where there's a normal physiologic situation underlying it, and you've overwhelmed that and created an artificial demand that's very expensive to meet, and can kill you while trying to meet. If I could get the attention of people that are in decision-making capacity, but they're expecting people to stop doing what they're doing and come to a meeting, in this case in Concord. So what you have, the only people that can afford to do that are bureaucrats or people that are salaried who are not on a physician's sort of earning table. I only get paid when I work. I don't get paid when I'm gone from here. So if I leave here, it has to be important enough that I'm willing to sacrifice a day's pay to go and talk to people. If I'm going to go, those people ought to be receptive. They, by and large, are not. I've called the governor's office at least 20 times. The governor's never called me back. But the governor had a guy, very nice guy, that was the original drug czar. He didn't know anything about drug addiction. He was a dreamer. He was going to have some big foundation, a bunch of donations. He had this very, very diffuse and not focused plan. He was in a lot of trouble. Everybody was claiming that he never came to see the cops or the courts or anybody that was involved in the actual rendition of care to the addict population or rendition of justice to the addict population. So he's gone, Mr. Wozniak. Nice man. I have no ill to speak of him. Good person, good man, not well suited for the job is the worst I can say about him. They, despite all the news that we have had in the papers and all the understanding we think we have about where this is going, the new guy is a former prosecutor from the Attorney General's office. What does he know how to do besides put people in jail? Now, I may be unfair to him. I've called and reached out to him. He's never called back. So the people that are in the decision-making capacity in this state, that are not in the clinical capacity, and that are they're apparently unwilling to call people who have some other opinion and the experience to back it up. That would be me. There are a lot of Suboxone clinics. Many of them are owned by the O'Connell Pain Care chain, and that's, I need say no more. You can look up O'Connell and Pain Care and have your own answers to why that might be a problem. But if they're independent from there and working as I do and have a sense of purpose, of mission, that would be good. There aren't enough of us. There's only 4,000 total in the United States of Suboxone prescribing, licensed MDs. We need to change that dynamic. There's a lot of things that would be well studied and well changed after some study. The answers are there, just nobody's paying attention. So I think we are due for some change. We're due to redirect this because we're looking at a train wreck. And it's not just here in New Hampshire. It's everywhere in the United States. You can make fentanyl now in a backyard lab, kind of a la Walter White in Breaking Bad. It's cheaper than buying heroin from Mexico. There's a new drug that's 15 times more potent than fentanyl. There are all these theories. I talked with one of my addict patients who's got a relative who was literally using naloxone, which is the blocking drug that you give to somebody that's overdosed. He was snorting a little naloxone and then shooting up with fentanyl, thinking that the naloxone would protect him and he would get a better high. He stopped breathing twice while doing this. If there hadn't been somebody there, he would have been dead. Many of these patients are dead before they understand what they're doing. Again, if you look at the dynamic of it, they've impaired the development of the part of your brain, the frontal lobe, where you make advanced decisions, critical decisions. If you've blocked the growth of that, you're a child making childlike decisions. And you can wake up dead and making childlike decisions. And as I said, 500 some odd people have waked up dead in this thing. Well, that's unacceptable to me.